Good evening and welcome to the Monday, May 14th City of Cross Lake Council meeting. We'll call the meeting to order by all rising and pledging allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, we have some additions to the agenda that requires a motion from the council. So if I could have a motion for the additions, please.
I'll make that motion.
David Nevin makes motion.
I'll second it.
Dave Schrupp, second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And then we always have a long consent agenda. All items here listed are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be acted on in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or council member so requests. Can we have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I'll make that motion.
Gary Hecox first. A second?
I'll second it.
Dave Schrupp second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. You can see by your agendas tonight that we have a public hearing at 7:15, and since it's only 7:02 right now, we're going to move into the rest of the agenda, and then we will close the council meeting to go into our public hearing and then reconvene where we left off. So under critical issues, the first ones on the agenda is Pat Netko and Tim Bray on the County Road Beautification Project.
Good evening, Council. Pat Netko, business owner in Cross Lake, resident in Cross Lake, and a Cross Laker. Since the Minnesota Design Team has been here and we have been working as Cross Lakers on many projects throughout the city, one of them through our connectivity group is the Cross Lake Beautification Flower Planter Project. I think you have in your packets a sheet that I put together. We would like to starting out small but big. We would like to put 3 4-foot planters on the water sides of each of the Dam Bridge and the Daggett Bridge. It'll be a total of 12 4-foot planters. Each bridge is approximately 40 feet long, so we would be planting 12 feet of the 40 feet. So it's not going to be total solid flower baskets. It will be 3 4-foot flower baskets. As you can see on your sheet, I believe do you all have this?
You can leave that up there for the audience. Yeah.
Okay. The planters would be purchased wholesale from Northwedge at $40 each. The plants would also be purchased from Northwedge at approximately $65 each. The brackets are custom made by Jeremy Knippel. The solar panels, we would need solar pumps and panels to water the planters. This would be a one-time cost of $1,412, which includes all these items. And I have here tonight with me Sam Shirey. Sam he works with solar, and he's here to answer any questions that you might have about the solar panels and pumps and the lift, and he's researched this and done all the study on this. And so if you have any questions on all that stuff, we would be glad to answer them. We have talked with Chief Lohmiller about attaching the bracket or some of the tubing onto the PVC pipe that is on the Daggett Bridge that the firemen use for their water. Tim Bray is here with preliminary approval, and he'll talk more about that in just a minute. Just to let you know, I have also talked with Ted, and we will be taking the pumps and the panels, the solar panel and the box that stores the timer in, and the flower baskets off so it will be stored during the winter. It won't stay up there. And Ted has room to store those for us. The one question that I would like to ask is, if this is approved tonight, we would like to not just ask for the $3,872. We'd like to have a maximum of $5,000 in case this is something new, this is a brand new project. We're not sure if we'll run into needing more tubing or whatever that might be. I just want to make sure that we have a little cushion there. And also, if we would have the ability to use one of Ted's employees to help us with the installation of the tubing when the time comes here soon. So those things. And then Tim is here with some other items. And before I bring Tim up, he can answer this all at one time. We've also been talking through our connectivity group about crosswalks and getting one on County Road 66 in front of Lake Country Crafts and Cones. And we've been after this for a while, and we wanted to have the wide white lines with the double cross oars for Cross Lake to kind of start a new trend. But Tim's just not quite ready to bite that bullet yet, and he'll explain why. So I'll let him come up and talk, and then I'll be here for any questions.
Good evening. Tim Bray, Crow Wing County engineer, and thanks for having me. I have been working with Pat and the beautification group. What was the first group? Conductivity group over the last year or so, and the very first day they approached me about adding some beauty to Cross Lake. I think Cross Lake is beautiful anyway, but the first thing they were asking me about was these planters on the bridges, and just took a careful approach with Pat and her group about those. Normally there's not stuff that we hang on our bridges or other public infrastructure. We want to be careful about that, liability, and things like that. She's worked with a local metal worker. I don't know the gentleman's name. He's Jeremy. Is he here?
Jeremy's not here.
They showed me the prototype last week, and it does not present a risk or drill into the bridge, which is very important to us, or harm the structural integrity of the bridges. So I'm satisfied that that will not do that, and we're, from my perspective, will allow those planters to happen. Like I said, nowhere else in the county that I'm aware of that we are doing this. And just, again, a thoughtful approach. Before the meeting, I dropped off an agreement. We used to do a lot of things on a handshake in the county, and we're trying to clean it up and formalize everything. So some of the basic, I didn't keep a copy for myself, but the basics are is who establishes, who puts them up, when they can be put up, when they should be taken down, what happens if one falls off and breaks, what happens if we want to fix a bridge and need to remove them, if it doesn't work out, what happens. It's the basics you would think about who's liable for them and who's responsible for doing the maintenance and those kind of things. And I brought that for you. We just finished it up, a draft, so I apologize it couldn't be in your packet. If you read through it, I can ask or answer specific questions about that. But in a nutshell, the county is approving the installation of these planters.
Good.
Any questions about that?
Does anybody have any questions for Tim?
I can quickly talk about the crosswalk. Also with this conductivity group, I received a map that a lot of the members of that team worked very, very hard on. There's a nice map that was created that identified areas for street lights and some crosswalks and a few other road sign amenities. And most recently, we've been focusing on the planters and one crosswalk in front of Crafts and Cones. I've been in close contact with Pat over the last few months, and have been evaluating whether a crosswalk is the right thing to do right there. In general, mid-block crosswalks can be problematic, and that's what I want to be very careful about. I've done some research. I've talked to some colleagues about that. And it is true that a lot of people are crossing the street there. But, I mean, a lot. But they also cross everywhere else, too. this town is linear, just how it's set up is kind of a free-for-all, and people kind of expect that. And philosophically, crosswalks can create risk there. People step out, they assume that they're protected by this imaginary, or not imaginary, this paint on the roadway, but the cars and the people don't anticipate people cross there. Locals do, I do, but one of our visitors, and we have many of them here, may not anticipate people crossing there. That combined with, emboldened by, the protection, the feeling of protection, could be disastrous. And I'm just taking a very careful approach of that. If you look at the other crosswalks, they at least lead to a sidewalk and other public, other walking and pedestrian infrastructure. This one would not. And so the business, for example, the business directly south of there, they're not likely to go to the front of Crafts and Cones to hit the crosswalk. They're going to go straight across like they always do. And it isn't going to prevent people from using it as a free-for-all. And although it's maybe counterintuitive to just let people go back and forth, people are careful when they do that. They look both ways and don't feel emboldened by a crosswalk. And people that are driving expect to be looking for people. And so it's very philosophical. I think I explained it to you, Pat, as mushy or squishy. It's a philosophy, and you can look at both. You can find both philosophies if you do your research on the internet. Well, I'm not ready to do that quite yet.
Okay.
Tim, if that was is it going to be a signed crosswalk that would be visual a block away? I mean, a crosswalk sign and then the striped road?
It would, if we were to install it, it would likely include pedestrian signs as well, but I'm not advocating for the installation of it there and just leaving it the way it is.
Okay.
If there was a sidewalk, would that make a difference?
It would help. It would, the environment would show that there should be pedestrians on both sides and people crossing. So if the environment says that they're not pedestrians on the one side, to not expect them.
I was just making a comparison. I think a block south of there, there's another similar intersection. That's just the T. And there's a crosswalk there, so.
There's some of, well, the
It's
majority.
right where the school is, right on the corner of the street.
My understanding is that there be sidewalks installed with the school at that, because they're specifically asking for a crosswalk in that area.
But there is a sidewalk on one side of the road, the bike path walking trail.
Correct.
And I'm just, if I was going down the street and I had 4 kids and we were going wherever we were going and I saw a crosswalk sign, I would go to that sign because of the family and walking across. And so,
There could be a crosswalk at every business.
yeah. But there are concentrated areas, and that is one of them.
Does anybody else have any questions for Tim specific to crosswalks? And I just want to say that Tim has been great to work with. And we were talking about the number of hours that the volunteers have spent putting together this Flowers on the Bridge project. And it's amazing when you start adding them all up. So I guess we won't have a silhouette of a loon on the street in front of in front of Crafts and Cones this year, huh?
Well, I am open to, and we talked about this too at the conductivity group, is that we're open to doing that, just not at that location.
Yeah.
So the other ones that exist, as long as there's no cost to the extra cost to the county to paint a loon or cross oars or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions for Pat?
The flowers on the bridges are going to be facing the water. Is that correct?
They'll be on the water side, but they will be cascading flowers that will go over both sides. We don't have a picture of that. Do you? You don't have that? I actually have a picture on my phone of what they'll look like.
And I think some of you saw that at the workshop. There was a drawing of what that would look like.
So they would be, the planter itself will be on the water side, even with the top railing, and the flowers will go up from there and cascade down on both sides. So they'll be very visible from the road.
But they're not fastened to the bridge.
It's fastened to the bridge, it's not drilled into the bridge.
It's hooked over it or something.
Do you want me to try to find this picture? I apologize for not having this up. Do you have it? Okay, he's got one of the baskets, actually, with the thing on it. So the way that Jeremy has designed, he has custom-made these brackets to attach, they actually attach to the planter on two sides, and then it curves over the top rail and then under the bottom rail, and it's bolted in between. So you can't just lift it off or move it
Okay,
without
that was
taking the
part
bolt
of my
off. It's
question.
permanent, it's
Yeah.
on there without a whole lot of work trying to get it off.
In the meantime, does anybody else have any questions
I don't know if we'll be able to
for Pat?
see this or not.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of them that is attached to the bridge. So you can see how the bracket works there over the railings.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a close-up of that. So that it is even with the top, and it will, the flowers will look pretty, and you won't even probably be able to see the brackets.
So if we approve this, where does the money come from for that?
Well, what you need to do is reallocate some of your existing budget. And the place right now where you would do that is, we do have a placeholder in the budget for storm damage. You know, we talked about that during our last budget process. We would just reduce that by the amount that they're requesting. I would not advocate adding to the budget.
Tim has the flower with the bracket here.
So it drapes over the top rail and then also clamps in the bottom so it can't move or twist.
And each of the bridges is different, they're not identically the same, so we has to make them different sizes for each of the bridges.
Okay.
Any questions
Any
on that?
questions? I do want to say that whenever I have a chance and talk to other mayors, I've asked them over the past spring how they advocate for their projects that lend a pleasing entrance to their cities. And many of them do it in many different ways. Cities like tonight will support it. They will, or they'll support it in other ways. We have a volunteer committee who's been doing most of the work on this, or has been doing all the work. Public Works gets very involved in different cities, so there's not one standard that meets each city. It moves around, whatever works best. Any more questions? I'd like to entertain a motion on the floor to go ahead with the Cross Lake Connectivity Flower Planter Project, not to exceed $5,000. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor of the project signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Nay. But it doesn't make any difference.
Motion carried. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. And we did have the creator of the solar panels here, too. Can he stand up, please? Because all of this has been volunteer hours by him, and he is a solar expert. And so, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, now we will turn this portion of the agenda over to public hearing. And Brad Person will lead this portion.
Just to refresh the council's memory, and then for the people in the crowd as well, you already saw this application, and This was presented by the Pattons. They own Lot 5 on the west there, and they're asking, that's their house, that's that, right in here is the corner of their house, and they're asking for the part in yellow, labeled road vacation, that triangle, to be vacated. The council looked at this last meeting, but there was miscommunication with staff and myself. We thought we had given notice to the neighbors, and we realized after the council meeting we had not. So that action really was premature or not ready for action. And so now we're just bringing back the exact same thing you looked at before. But this time we want to make sure that we have given notice to the neighbors and put it in the paper as well. And we want to wait, open the public meeting and see if there's any comment from the crowd. As you'll see in the agenda, there was one written objection that's in the packet. So maybe if you could call or ask for if there's anyone in the crowd that'd like to
Sure.
speak their piece.
Sure. Are there any comments in the public hearing portion of this meeting?
Madam Mayor, my name is Kurt Porter, and I represent the Pattons. What I propose to do is I did go out to the property today, the subject property, and I took some pictures. I know in past discussions that was a large part of the issue that a lot of people had and couldn't really visualize what we were talking about here. I do have those pictures on my laptop, and I think I can get those displayed for you. And then what I propose to do, I do want to honor time limits and only speaking once, so what I would do at that time is I'd go through the pictures, take a step back, and then maybe make my comments after everybody else has spoken, if that's okay with you. Okay, and then where do I put your mark? In the back. Oh, right. Thank you.
What was the vote on this last time, Char? Was it 3-2? Or does it matter?
It really shouldn't matter since we didn't, and the applicant wasn't here as well, so it was really just, I can't remember exactly how it came up on but someone brought up, why don't we just get on it, get to it right now, and we didn't know at the time, when I say we, myself and staff, we each thought the other had done more noticing than we had. I mean, so you really shouldn't really talk about this until the neighbors have a chance to come to the meeting and make sure you hear their concerns before you vote on it.
I don't know if anybody else is coming up.
Well, we'll find out, but that's what the meeting's for.
Okay, and it might be helpful if, I don't know if the council has the sketch handy. This first picture is taken from the most southern point of the triangle, of that portion of the property that we're looking to vacate. So, in a sense, we are looking north-northeast, or actually northeast-east, along that longest, well, the math guy said it'd be the hypotenuse of the triangle. And you can see here from this picture that the actual road as it exists today is off to the right. This picture, that's my car. It's taken from the same location, but just looking to the northwest toward the house. This picture is taken from the corner of the house and looking in the northeast-east direction along the other long line of the triangle there. And this picture is taken from the corner of the triangle that's furthest to the north. And it is looking, as you can see, back toward the lake and the house. This picture, so starting from this location where we're up at the point, the most northern point of the triangle, and walking south west toward the lake. Oops. This picture is taken about halfway down, still looking at the lake. And then this picture is just me turning around looking back at it. And I forgot to point out, but I hope you saw through each of these pictures that there was a string delineating the line. What I did today was, take a step back. Previously, we had a surveyor go out and stake out where these lines were. I went through and ran the line so that you can see what exactly we're talking about here. So with that, I'll leave it at this picture. You can see the line again a little more clearly. I'll take a step back, unless the council has any immediate questions, but I can take a step back, let everybody else speak,
Sure.
and then come back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else that'd like to speak on this matter? Not seeing any other comment, so I'm not sure if Mr. Porter would like to finish your...
You know, with that, unless the council has any questions for me, I will very briefly address the letter that the council did receive, which is in my notes here. But there were three main points that the Teeny's attorney brought up. One, that there was no public purpose. I'll disagree with that. Of course, there is a public purpose. The whole reason we're doing this is because the Patton's house technically encroaches on what has been dedicated to the public, a right-of-way. That in and of itself is a public purpose. We need to fix this encroachment issue. If we don't fix it, the alternative is possibly a lawsuit by the city telling them to remove it, or alternatively, if we do nothing, we render this property unmarketable. So it is something that needs to be fixed one way or the other. Another issue that I recall from the letter doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the request to vacate here, but just in case the council is concerned, there was this allegation about the Pattons blocking the roadway. I will say that Shannon Patton is here with me, and she can explain the story a lot better than I can, but in sum, their son or someone who was visiting did park a four-wheeler on the roadway. They didn't know. When they did find out about it, they moved it right away. They apologized. It's not going to happen again. In any event, by vacating, as you can see from this picture, by vacating this roped-off portion, we're not decreasing the road in any way. It's their yard, and then where they park. So there's no merit to that comment. With that, again, I don't want to take up any more of the council's time unless there are specific questions that the council would have for me.
Council members?
Are these questions to Mr. Porter?
Yes.
You know, I guess I had a question here that, you know, I'm reading what's law. And it says there's no prohibition that a vacation might also benefit a private party that you're talking about. And I'm reading this just so the city of Cross Lake doesn't get in any trouble. But having said that, there's no prohibition that a vacation might also benefit a private party, but there must be a public benefit as the primary objective. What is the public benefit of doing this?
Well, again, as I mentioned earlier, so to clarify, although I think you hit the nail right on the head, I think you understand what's being said there. What the court is saying is that the public interest is the primary concern. Now, just because in this case the Pattons do end up benefiting in some small way, when actually it's a large way because we're fixing the encroachment, that's a public purpose and a benefit to the Pattons. But just because they're going to benefit in some small way, that doesn't mean that it's a reason to deny this. We have to focus on what the public purpose is. Now again, like I said earlier, the main reason that we're doing this is because there's an encroachment, right? And if you don't vacate it, that encroachment continues to exist. That continues to exist for both the Pattons and the public. Now you can either fix it, and the way you fix it is with an ejectment lawsuit, where you just tell them to fix it, but they're not going to do it without that lawsuit. Or you do nothing. But like I said earlier, doing nothing renders this property unmarketable. They won't be able to sell it again. Now, if you tell me that there's no public interest in remedying that situation, I don't know what else to tell you.
I don't know that it's up to me to define the public interest.
Well, I'm telling you what the public interest is.
I haven't heard anything.
Well, then you weren't listening to what I just said.
Okay.
Because the public interest is fixing the problem. If you don't fix the problem stays. And that problem is both the public's and the Pattons. Now, if you disagree with that, I can't help that, but that is a public interest.
I'll defer to Mr. Persons on that one.
When we go back to council comment, we can go over it and I can try to answer any questions you have.
Then I just had one other question that I want to make, because this whole process is dragging out, and I think it's dragging out. Have you gone and worked with P&Z to the point where you've looked at every piece of paper related to that property? And are you satisfied that you've dug into the details? Perhaps there was an error made someplace? Or have we not reviewed that in the detail that we should have prior to coming here?
Well, there certainly was an error.
Permits, check, well, this came up before, and I just can't take your word for it, but I think we have to have our people look at the files. There could be an error that the city made, but we don't know that.
Well, I'm not sure what kind of error you're talking about, but we certainly know there was an error made because the encroachment exists, right? But, you know, to the extent that we're talking about the fact that this error exists, I mean, keep in mind this property has been there for years, and it wasn't the Pattons who built it. Yeah, they purchased the property without a survey, but the house itself was built without a survey, and that house was not built without a building permit. I mean, there is some culpability to go around here. So I don't know. No, I can't tell you where exactly that incident happened in and of itself. I don't think we can point to any one particular thing. I think we can point to a whole host of things since the property has existed, since the addition itself has existed.
Do you know about how long ago that property was built? Or does anybody?
The property itself or the addition that constitutes the encroachment?
Was that an addition?
I believe it was.
Well, when was that built, the addition?
And I don't have the answer to that right off the cuff.
Do you?
Yeah, so we're the owners right now.
Can you come up, I
I
guess?
was going to say, maybe Ms. Patton could
Sure.
answer
Yeah.
that.
Hi, I'm Shannon Patton. We're the current owners now. I kind of just want to say that the whole reason this all got started was we wanted to put in a little sand beach for our kids. And so I came into the city to pull a permit, and you can only have a certain percentage of shoreline. And it was not what we thought we'd purchased, our shoreline. And so we don't have much shoreline, and it was kind of a big difference. So we decided we better get the property surveyed, because I came into the city and they told me they couldn't find anywhere on record where it had been surveyed. And this was our first cabin purchase, and it was our mistake. Now I know that you should look to see if there was a survey. So once we had the survey done, they had said, we have a bigger issue at hand here. Your cabin is in. So I've been kind of working with the city, because I was like, how could this even happen? But now kind of going through it. Anyways, the cabin the addition, I think, was done in 2012. And that addition was what was built on into the road easement. So I think the original owners purchased it in 2005, and then the addition was finished, I believe, in 2012.
Was it a permanent addition?
It was.
John?
Because I came into the city and asked if I could see the permit.
And I only have it up on my phone here, so it was an addition that was put in for is there a garage there? Because it says garage addition, but.
No, the garage is detached.
Yeah, addition to the garage and then onto the house in that time. And there's documentation, they have a site drawing, but no one went out and verified the actual property lines to ensure that they were meeting the setbacks, which is what I do now for every permit that I issue. So, and that was before our time, 2011, it was 2 years before I started
And the
working
previous owner owned that property for 30 or 40 years, I believe?
here. Yes.
And they're the ones that did the addition?
Correct. And going back in time, there are no indications that anyone ever went and checked property lines to make sure. Now, originally, that was a part of a larger parcel of land, and they were able to subdivide it previous to that, too. So that one parcel was split up into 3 different parcels.
Are there any other questions for
My only
Mrs.
comment to
Patton?
that is these people are new owners, and I think it's pretty obvious that there was no intent or anything to do anything. They just stumbled into something and they got a problem. That's the way I see it, so.
Are there any other public comments? Brad, I'll let you take it from here, if there are none.
Sure. Well, now it's the time, if you want to go ahead and confirm, we'll close the public hearing part of the hearing here.
Okay, the public hearing portion of this hearing is, oh, I'm sorry. Just before I got to the end of the sentence, we have another one.
That's fine.
We don't want to do it again.
Dale Melberg, 12644 Anchor Point Road. The city of Cross Lake does not issue building permits. They issue zoning permits. We haven't adopted the uniform building code in this town, so the city has no inspectors. It doesn't do inspections. We started at one of the later years of Ken Anderson's tenure here, of going out and at least locating the building before they start construction. We still depend on the contractor to site the structure, and before, I don't know what time, I suppose I could go back and calculate, but no one went out to inspect the foundations, their location, or anything. And so it was the contractor's responsibility to site this. They didn't. I don't see any public benefit from this. The owners, of course, are going to benefit, but I don't see how the city benefits. It's not our problem. It's their problem, and it's their insurance company's problem. So I can't see how you can arbitrarily give away more land than is needed to correct the situation. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Before we close public comments, are there any other public comments? Okay, the public comments of the hearing are now closed.
So now it's back to the council. If you have any, you want to discuss or make a motion or ask questions among yourselves or to staff, that's the time for that now.
Does anybody have any questions for Brad? For Mr. Persons, our city attorney?
I've got some comments to make about it.
Okay. I do have one question, and we'll go to your
Go ahead.
comments.
No.
So just so I'm clear, the Patton's request is treated like it's their first one again?
This is their first hearing.
Yes,
The last
okay.
hearing really wasn't a hearing. It was, we shouldn't have
Right,
acted on it.
right, so-
really, the past doesn't change anything. It should be viewed freshly. You've heard their request, you've heard some opposition.
Yeah.
I think you have the facts in front of you.
So this application then dated February 14th is the one that we are considering today. No other, not a new application was needed?
It's the same application.
Okay.
Yep. We acted prematurely, so they're here now. They have presented.
Okay. Dave, Mr. Nevin, you
My
had some questions?
question to the council is, have we ever vacated any property before?
We haven't, but there has been property vacated.
Us personally, but the council, previous councils have
I
vacated
don't know if
property.
council did it or planning and zoning.
Well, I can answer that. The council definitely has vacated many times.
Yeah.
I don't know about this particular council of 5, but yes, is the answer.
And, you know, I mean, we could talk about this for days, but it just seems to me the way the current projected survey is drawn makes sense out of a lot that is kind of a joke without it. I mean, we're making it a uniform lot by doing that, and I can't see any loss that they're asking for on that road right away. Any parking, snow removal, anything, nothing's gonna change. So that's my feeling about it.
Are there any other comments from the council?
There really isn't enough land here to really worry about. I've got a 30 by 40 garage, which is 1,200 square feet. If you vacate part of it, or you vacate it all, I'd make a motion to vacate it.
I'll second that motion.
Are we done talking yet?
Right.
No, it's still just a motion. You can,
Right,
like
so
always, you can talk more.
And it's a second, so now we can still
Well,
comment.
I
ask
haven't heard any
questions.
benefit to the public. I've heard one side to the homeowner, and I'm sorry they're in this predicament. And I don't feel that we have to vacate half of the right-of-way. We're cutting a 66-foot right-of-way in half. And we had 2 commissions that said we'd be happy if we gave them 10 feet just to make them whole. So that's where I stand on this thing. I think we vacate half of that, we'll be in court. You don't know all of the history on prior vacations. There may have been public benefits described. We don't know any of that tonight. But in this one, I haven't heard anything.
Well, I can address the public benefit concern. I can tell, I mean, I've done hundreds of these, not all in Cross Lake, but there's never, other than the one Mr. Porter raised, that you're trying to fix a title problem, it's never good for the city necessarily to vacate part of a road. I mean, that's not how you think it through. You're trying to balance the rights of the private owner, that we're trying to clean up their problem, against those of the neighbors. And in general, if it's not needed for public purpose, not just now, but in the future. So we've had Ted come up before and say, well, right now, but we know someday we want to do a bike path there, or every piece of land is different. Utilities need to come someday, and so we need to be careful in where we vacate. So it's not just today, it's forever. But you need to weigh, we want to give up as little as we need to fix their problem, but at the same time not hamper the rights of others that use that road.
Right.
And you're going to get 2 answers, but depending on who you ask there. So it's always a balancing act.
Right. Have you ever done any vacations on a street like this where it's dead-ended?
Yeah,
I was
I've
reading
done, like
on
I
the
said,
league.
when I say hundreds, I've probably done over 1,000. So I've seen gobs of them. That doesn't mean that this one's simple. They're all different. Everyone's got different neighbors, different history. Some of the things you've talked about are relevant. I mean, how long it's been since the encroachment happened. The most relevant thing is, how will it affect, if at all, the rights of others in that that's the most important factor. Are we going to screw up the access of lot 6 or whatever that is at the bottom? 6, 7, 8, or anybody to the right there? That's your most important concern, is just making sure we don't impact or negatively their access to their property. Other than that, it's been the general consensus, not of just Cross Lake, but most towns. You try to vacate as little as you can to achieve that encroachment fix. So that triangle is nice and clean. That doesn't mean you got to vacate that much, but you also need to have, if there's not, you have had one comment against it from a neighbor, but, you know, it looks like, looking at those pictures, that it's not influencing a current road right away. But again, don't always think of current. It's also, this is forever. So is there some need? We haven't heard from Ted. Is there some need to widen that road, or plowing, or those are the kind of things you might want to consider too. How does it influence our ability to maintain that road? Is there any future utility expansion? You know, can we conceive of anything? That's the kind of stuff you should be thinking about.
And historically, and this goes back to the recommendations from our 2 commissions that weighed in on this, is that it has been to just vacate the portion of the right-of-way to make it legal for the homeowner.
Well, I don't think it's ever black and white. It would be very out of the norm to not at least vacate enough so there's not a building encroachment.
Yeah.
And people like to usually try to give them a little bit of a setback too. So it would be surprising to see facts like this and not have some sort of vacation done. Whether that triangle's the right shape or not, that's pure discretion. I don't have an answer for you. I mean, that's up to the council. You're the decision maker, not staff.
And this is essentially a side yard setback, and that's where the commissions came in with a 10-foot separation. And that was their recommendation.
I think it was.
I look at that drawing, and I'm pretty familiar with that property, and I know the accesses to the other driveways. Nobody other than the Pattons would ever go on to that part that we're talking about vacating. The roads come in, their houses are set back, there's no turning issues, there's no nothing. To me, to make it just a clean looking lot and give up a few extra feet is, I mean, why wouldn't we do it? So.
Any other? oh,
I thought
excuse me.
Ted did weigh in on this and say that it didn't make any difference to Public Works or snow removal or anything.
Well, maybe we should have them back up and
Here he comes.
redo it.
He might have, by the way. I haven't heard it, but I didn't attend the P and Z meeting, for example, so I'm not sure what all staff have weighed in here.
At this time, we do no maintenance of this road. The individuals out there take care of it solely them by themselves. It's not on our maintenance list.
Okay.
At times change, whatever. Just as an example, if you drive up Manhattan today, there's 3 lines located on this side and there's 2 on this side of the road. There's no room to put anything else in. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to happen on that road. I don't see it ever going any farther than what it is today. If we someday put a sewer up there, there's still plenty of room to do that, to serve that neighborhood. So I don't see any detriment to if you go forward with this. So.
Thank you, Ted. Any other comments? Gary, do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay. Dave?
Nope.
Brad?
Nope.
Shar, would you read the motion on the table, please?
Well, the motion would be to approve the resolution
Okay.
vacating the property.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
And that's for the principle of
Was that 3 to 2 or?
3 to 2.
Yes.
And my no vote is because we have commissions that we rely heavy on to get our information. And I want to make sure that they are a valued part of our city here. So, thank you. Is that, are you done with your portion, Brad?
With that public hearing, that's all we need, yes.
Okay. So now we will go back to our agenda. And under critical issues, we have Tad Erickson and Ashley Kaiserschott to give us a review on the update of the comprehensive plan.
Good evening. My name is Tad Erickson. I'm a planner with the Region 5 Development Commission. I'm joined by my colleague Ashley Kaiserschott of the National Joint Powers Alliance. You have before you a resolution to adopt the Cross Lake Comprehensive Plan update. In addition to that, I know you have a copy of the plan itself, as well as 2 additional handouts, which I can describe in a little bit. I have 3 brief points to go through, and I will try to be brief. You will recall January 11th of this year, we had a working session where Ashley and I came to present and to talk about the steering committee's work on the comprehensive plan to that date. Since that time, the steering committee has wrapped up their work. They've developed their goals and the policies. Ashley and I have drafted the plan. The plan's been reviewed by the public. There was a 30-day public review period. There was a 60-day county review period. The Planning Commission also reviewed the document last Friday, and there was a public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting as well. Just wanted to back up just a little bit. I'll talk about, 1, the planning process, the plan itself, and then the recommendations from the Planning Commission in the Friday's meeting. This is a document that's been in the works for just over a year, 13 months to be exact. I want to talk about the planning process. First part, the development of the steering committee. There was a steering committee that was developed to include private sector, council representation, planning and zoning representation, fire safety, law enforcement was all involved and a part of that steering committee. The first half of the planning process was emphasized community engagement. And the steering committee felt that it was important for the development of the comprehensive plan, which is the plan looking out 10 to 15 years for the city's vision, to rely heavily on community engagement. So a community survey was developed. We had over 200 responses. I think it was 216 to be exact. And for a community of just over 2,000, that's just over a 10% response rate. So we were very happy with that. In addition to the survey, we held 2 community listening sessions, which were very well attended. Very good discussion from the public. The steering committee kind of saw those listening sessions as a way to report back to the community as to what they've been up to and how the plan was progressing. In addition to that, we publicized those listening sessions through community partners. The Chamber got the word out about those, the Cross Lakers as well as, and other community groups as well. The plan itself, the steering committee relied to begin with on a little bit of the work that the Minnesota design team had developed in their guiding principles, and then used those guiding principles as somewhat of a launching pad to identify the leading themes for the city. And those leading themes then turned into the chapter headings for the plan you have in front of you. Chapter headings include housing, transportation, land use, recreation, the environment, and a few others, community infrastructure, and community facilities as well. After identifying those leading theme areas, the steering committee spent, I believe it was 4 meetings putting together the goals and the policies under each of those theme headings. And then finally, the end of the plan includes an implementation chapter. And what the implementation chapter is designed to do is to act as a bridge between the planning process and implementation. And so the implementation chapter takes each of those leading themes and then provides kind of quick, actionable steps that the city could take to get moving towards those goals identified in each chapter. The third point I wanted to touch on was the Planning Commission's recommendations. The Planning Commission on Friday again met and voted to recommend approval of the plan and with some changes. And so one of the handouts you have is an email, I believe from Ashley, that outlines the changes that the Planning Commission recommended. Ashley and I have incorporated each of those changes into the plan with the exception of one. And it's not because we're not recommending that change. It's just that that one change, and that's the third handout you have, is a bit of a more material change. It has to do with goal number 4 under the Economic Vitality chapter. And the comment after lots of discussion that the Planning Commission had was that they wanted to see a goal number 4 be added to the Economic Vitality chapter. And the goal has to do with developing a more year-round economy to help with kind of the seasonal nature that the city deals with. And so Ashley and I drafted a goal number 4 that we felt, based on the discussion from the Planning Commission, appropriately addressed that concern that the Planning Commission had. And so you have that goal in front of you as that third handout, and you can see there's a couple policies listed underneath that goal as well that kind of bolster that goal. And again, the Planning Commission did recommend to approve the plan with those changes that you have in front of you. So with that, I hope I didn't go too fast. If I did, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the plan or the planning process.
Are there any questions for Tad or Ashley?
Tad, if 6 months from now we decide that we need to change something, it's pretty easy to change it, go back and revisit something, and I don't know what that is, but...
Yeah, so it's a plan document, so it's a living document. It does have a 10 to 15-year time horizon. However, one of the recommendations in that implementation chapter I talked about revisiting the plan annually. And so they're built into the plan as an option to revisit the plan and make changes or amendments at any time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the council? If not, could we have a motion on the floor to adopt the updated comprehensive plan?
I'll make that motion.
Gary Hecox first. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
David Nevin second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a really fun project to work on, and we learned a lot. The next one is Beth Hippert from Crow Wing County Soil and Water.
Mayor Norgaard and council members, we return tonight to revisit the question we posed to you last month and to give you an update on the status of the Pine River Fish Passage project. The question that we had asked last month was if we could ask the City of Cross Lake to partner with the Crow Wing SWCD and take liability for any road repairs that are needed on Big Pine Lake Trail as a result of this project. And we'd like you to, again, consider that question tonight. Before you get to that point, and maybe we could put the plans up here for the audience tonight. Maybe before I start, are there any questions about the project that you have from last month?
Do you just want to give us a brief update on this picture that's in front of us, and then we'll move on?
Sure, just the brief update. As you know, Senator Carrie Ruud did have a bill proposed, and that bill did get good support, but was not added to the omnibus bill. So it will not be passed this or have a chance even of passing this legislation. So that is not an option for us, and I've been looking into other possibilities. But at this point, what I will be doing is making an application to the Outdoor Heritage Fund, which is for projects like this, exactly like this, that are over $400,000 in cost. And I have it on good authority that our last application, we were ranked very high in a regional level by the DNR and on the level of all the applications. The highest ranking project was 80 points and ours was 77. So in writing this new application, it's the same sort of thing. It's just a bigger pool and a few more hoops to jump through. So,
Ted, you had a couple of comments regarding this.
Mr. Mayor, after the last council meeting, you guys directed me to go back and get some more information. What I found out is back in '99, we fixed the road after a repair to the dam. It consisted of some overlays, some fabric being installed, and some other areas that were repaired. There's 1.49 miles of road that's total. Of that 1.4, 2,100 feet is actually in Mission Township. When we did the project before, they didn't have any money. All of the land serves basically DNR property. There's nobody to assess. There's nobody, so they didn't participate in any of the repairs. We did it solely ourselves. The other things I asked a colleague of mine that's been doing this a whole lot, an engineer that's been doing it for the state a whole lot longer than I have. And one of the things that they offered was if they would stay underneath the 7-ton or below, there's really nothing we can do. We have no leg to stand on to take and say they cannot use the road. That was challenged by the state, and the state lost on this same issue before. As long as they stay below that. So if they are willing to go forward with that and offer us the 7-ton, we can ask them to do it in the wintertime when there's less likely damage for us, or in late fall when it's drier. We can ask conditions like that, but as long as they stay underneath that 7-ton, there's not much we can do.
Okay.
So I guess it would be my recommendation that if they can find their funding to allow them to go forward, as long as they can stay underneath our road restriction, our limit of our road that was designed for. I still think we're going to have damage to the road. There's just no way, in my opinion, that we can put that many trucks across it without some kind of damage. And we're at, it's 19 years old, basically, today. We'll probably be looking at maybe a year or two now. So we'll be getting to that, what we're trying to get is 25 years out of these roads. So it might be time at that, when they get it fixed, and it's hopefully fixed for the last time, that we do a major reconstruct of it and get her done. So we'll just put it into our 5-year road improvement project plan, and we'll go forward from there with your blessing.
Is any of Big Pine Lake in Mission Township?
No.
No.
Beth, does that help clarify your concern, and can you go forward with that
Yeah.
explanation?
Yes, that, we can live with that. That will certainly help us too
Okay.
with this next grant. So it's really, that's why we're here tonight too, is it will be added to that grant application.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Need any motion or anything?
Let's see. Oh, sorry.
If you were to do that in the winter, then you could easily go to 9-ton and cut your trucking down and expenses and whatever on it. So
Yeah.
there would be an incentive for you to do that.
Right.
Well, we would
Correct.
prefer to do that, but
Yeah, we tried to leave it open for the contractor to make his own determination as to which way to do it, hopefully keeping the cost down, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
but we would like a motion yeah.
And you want your motion to read,
to approve
to approve the,
the recommendation of Ted. Yeah, Ted's
okay,
recommendation.
okay,
yeah.
okay.
I'll make that.
Or-
I'll make that
second-
motion.
I'll second that motion.
Here, we can take your pick here. David Nevin first, Dave Schrupp second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to Mayor's report, we're going to set a date for the council workshop to discuss the proposed uses for the land acquisition at the park, or at the park. And so it seems like when we send out a doodle, we can never find a time that we all can meet. And so Shar recommended that we all look at our calendars and find a date that works for the council to review the land acquisition for the 9.1 acres. Shar, do you have any suggested dates?
Do it now.
Okay. How about next Monday at 5 o'clock? Does that work for everybody?
I might be a little late, but yeah,
Well, we can make it 5:30.
well.
I'm good.
Okay.
I mean,
Gary?
5:30 to 21st?
5:30 on the 21st. Okay. Then we need a motion to accept that date.
I'll make that motion.
David Schrupp first, second.
I'll second it.
Gary Heacock second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Then we also need to set a date for the council workshop to discuss the City Hall safety upgrades and expansion, and of course, this also includes our fire department and our police department. Do you want to set a separate date for that, or would you like, could we combine those? What do you think, Mike?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, does Shard?
I think they could both be lengthy.
You may want to dedicate
Okay,
a
so
meeting
let's.
to each one.
Okay, sure.
What about police and fire? Are they going to be here then? Are they okay
They
with
will,
it?
they will have to make, we'll have to clearer with their calendars too. Okay. Do you have any dates, Eric, that are absolutely against your schedule?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Gary, what do you think?
What?
What do you think? Should we do,
I think we should do them both.
okay.
Both in one night?
Well, I
Yeah.
think we should touch on them both anyway, and if we get too long, we'll make a date.
Want to set up, how about the 29th, the Tuesday?
For the second one? Okay. I think we should split them too, just in case we have, they run long. We want to try to get them taken care of when we have the opportunity. So 29th, 5:30, and that will be for the discussion of the City Hall facilities needs assessment. And can I have a motion on the floor to,
I'll make that motion for 5/29 at 5:30.
okay. David Nevin first, Dave Sharp second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to public forum. No action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on the agenda of a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given a 3-minute time limit. Are there any comments from the floor?
Pat Netco again. Just an FYI, we have received a $500, two $250 grants from Thrivent Financial, and we will be planting again. The Cross Lake Lutheran Youth Group will be planting flowers at the campground and doing some weeding and helping out with some things there a week from Wednesday. So when you see the flowers and all that stuff, that's where they come from. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the 23rd, Pat?
Yes.
What time?
4 p.m.
Are there any other comments? Please state your name and
My name
your
is Robin
address.
Stewart.
Oh.
And I live at 12548 Dewdrop Lane in Cross Lake. And I was just wondering, I didn't see it on the agenda.
It's in the, it's in the
letter.
Yeah, it's in, yeah.
What?
It was
It's in the
approved, she said.
it's in the,
Is in that batch?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. That's
Thank
all I
you.
need to know.
Thank you, Robin. It's good to put a face to the voice.
Hi, Sadie Hoag, I just wanted to clarify on the meeting for the land acquisition. Is that for the public or is that just the council
No,
on the
it's-
21st?
It's open,
It's a public-
yeah, it's a public
It'll be a
meeting.
public meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sadie. Are there any other public comments? Nobody wants to mention our fantastic drive-by brat sale on Friday, opening fishing? It was our biggest event ever.
Cindy Mugato, Director of the Chamber of Commerce in Cross Lake, and I was involved as a volunteer in that project. The Light Up the Dam Committee, or team actually, of volunteers, does 2 brat sales a year, and I want to thank the councilman who purchased lunch that day, and Patty for helping cook all the brats that day. I think the final numbers were over 300 brats served. Is that right, Bill? Do you remember? It was almost $2,000 in revenue. And the Tim and Beth Shallow are the chair people of that committee or that team, and they do a fantastic job of preparing for it all. Reed's Market actually donated all of the groceries, so all of the revenue from the sale of the hot dogs and the brats went completely to fund the lighting of the dam. And Jeremy Knipple, thank you. I didn't bring notes. Jeremy Knipple made a kettle corn cooker, and we offered kettle corn as well for this event. And the Light Up the Dam team committee will be doing 5 movies this summer, outdoor movies at the campground. One is dedicated to wounded warriors, and it coincides with their Wounded Warrior Campout weekend. The dates are listed on the Cross Lake app, and the names of the movies are on the app. And Jeremy will be cooking the kettle corn there as well. Those movies are free, completely free, no entrance fee, no charge for the popcorn or the water. It's just a service that we provide to the community.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from our audience? Even though Jeremy is not here, and I like to refer him as a welder by trade and artist at heart, because he has also done our shamrock and our wreath for the dam. However, we do have somebody who's probably just as important in our audience who comes every time, and that's his dad, Joel Knipple. There he is. But it's a great team. Thank you. If there are no more comments, the public comment forum is closed. We'll move on to the city administrator's report.
Okay, thank you. In your packet, listed as item G number 1, is a memo dated 25 April 2018 from the city clerk requesting approval of an on-sale wine license for Rafferty's Pizza. Right now, they have just a 3-2 license, and this would be a strong beer and a wine license in addition to that. So we're asking for a council motion and a action on that.
Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make that motion.
David,
Second.
David Nevin first, Brad Nelson second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the second item under my report is a note from Moody's Investor Service. And those of you that are familiar with Moody's, they're a bond rating agency. And from time to time, they will review a city's financial position that has outstanding debt, of which we have outstanding bonds. And they'll look at things like financial stability. Do you have a plan? Do you have things like a comprehensive plan that's current, like we just looked at? Do you have a road plan, a capital improvement plan, and things like that? And then I'll sit down with them via phone, and I'll just get peppering of questions for about an hour, hour and a half. And they'll take that information, and they go back and they say, you know, we think you're a better credit risk than you were the last time we spoke, so we're going to move you from a AA3 to a AA2. So if you think about it as you're still getting an A, a bond rating is really nothing more than a report card on your credit. There's 3 levels of ratings within each bond rating, and we're almost to the best rating you can get. So what that means is you are considered a high-quality investment grade. You're considered a high-quality investment grade risk. And what does that mean? That means you can potentially get better interest rates when you go to issue bonds or borrow money. And so that leads right into, item number 3. And not listed in here is, remember we borrowed money for the sewer plant last December. We've spent all of the bond proceeds to date. And so you'll start seeing, as part of our budget, we had anticipated spending cash from the proceeds of the phone company of about $1,500,000 to pay for the city's share of the improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. That's roughly 26% of the money we got when we sold the phone company. Now, the sale of the phone company actually helped our bond rating because it put us in a better financial position. And when you read through this, they'll talk about things like we're below average. Well, what does that mean? That means we're below average with the peer group that we were compared to. It doesn't mean we're below average. It means we're in a very good peer group, and that's a good thing, okay? So if you have any questions on that, please see me. With that said, also as part of our budgeting process, when we did our budget for the 2018 road projects, our intent at that time was to issue bonds to pay for the project. In our budgeting process, we were looking at about $1 million worth of bonds, and we probably don't need that much in bonds because some of the costs came in, some were a little higher, some were lower. And the way we set that up is the city would pay for the trail because we weren't allowed to bond for that under the reconstruction program we set in place. And so we would most likely reduce the size of any bond issue by the amount that we had in excess in our original plan dating back to 2015, 2016 for the trail. That number is yet to be determined, but my best guess today, if you were to ask me how much do we need to issue for debt, it'd be in that $800,000 range. Now we have a couple change orders coming through with respect to the trail, and some of the variances you'll see when we get this all done will be in relation to the trail where we didn't know where we're going to come out with easements and retaining walls and things like that. So I don't need a motion on this, but I just want to make sure that the council's intent is still to go through with that process. I'll get the ball rolling on that. When we get the project done, I'll come back with you, bring David Drown back up, and we'll run some scenarios. Here's what we think you should do to offset that. So is everyone in agreement, still in agreement with that process? Okay?
Yes.
Great. So we'll move on to item 4. Item 4 in your packet is an ambulance service contract that was signed by the city, looks like back in mid-November of 2012. And what this is prior to that date, the city paid the ambulance service $1,100 a month to help offset their costs of providing 2 ambulances in the north end of our building. That contract expired. And so what we did at that time was we said, back in 2012, we said, you know what, we're not going to charge each other a fee because you remodeled the building for us. We love it. We're going to stay there. We'll waive the fee for 5 years. The intent of the contract was when that contract was up, and it was up on January 1st of this year. Chip's nodding yes. And so they'd like to have a discussion on reinstating that fee. And I said, well, it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on North Ambulance's radar. So with your approval, we've agreed to reinstating the fee effective in May of this year. Then we'll take another look at it for 2019 to see if that still makes sense. So
it's $1,100 a month
again? It'd be $1,100 a month. Yep. My recommendation would be to reinstate it effective May of this year. They're willing to waive. It wasn't on my radar, and it wasn't on anybody's radar.
We're doing it just for 1 year. We'll look at it again during budget and come back with another recommendation. But prior to us remodeling the building for them, we didn't charge each other a fee. We waived it for 5 years. Prior to December 1st of 2013, we were paying $1,100 a month fee to provide ambulance service. If
As long as I can remember being here, we paid it.
yeah.
So where are you going to
Make
get
that
this
motion.
money?
Okay, is there a
Second.
first and a second?
But
All those-
Dave had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wondering where he's going to get this money.
Well, I think what we're going to do is we've already hit our budget on interest income. So I'm not going to recommend changing another expense item at this time. We already did that for the flower baskets. So I would just say we're going to have a little more on the top end and we'll offset it on the bottom end.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what I would do on this.
Any other questions before we vote on the motion on the floor? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. The last item in my report is listed as item G5, and our city code basically states that if you have a liquor license in a bar or restaurant and the ownership changes, or there's a change in ownership, or there's a new owner, we have to approve that before we can transfer the license. What this is requesting is council approval to add Mr. Miller as a 40% owner in Easy Money Hospitality, LLC, DBA Andy's. So the ownership structure has changed, so we need to approve that before the clerk can transfer the license. So if I could have a motion to that effect.
Background checks, everything's
Yep.
good on them?
Everything's good.
Is there a motion on the floor to
I'll
approve?
make that
Okay,
motion.
Gary Hecox to approve Mr. Miller as 40% owner of the company. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
We'll
you.
now go to our commission reports. Planning and zoning, Mr. Colstead.
Good evening. Before you, the only item I have today is a subdivision of parcel 142-390-010-120-009 involving 3.99 acres and splitting it into 3 tracts. It's the original and 2 additional. Owned by Thomas and Colleen Ledeen Trust, and then also collection of the park dedication fees for that. The last Planning Commission Board of Adjustment meeting we had, they recommended that you approve it as submitted. I'm going to find my certificate of survey here. So this is the entire tract right here, and they're splitting it off so they can have 3 building sites on the property. It meets all of the requirements of our ordinance, and the Park Commission has recommended that they pay the $1,500 fee per each of the 2 new lots that are being created. So we would need a motion for, to approve the subdivision and to accept the $1,500 for each lot.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Brad Nelson first. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Dave Schrupp second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. The next is public safety.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have three items tonight. I have a resolution adoption of the County All Hazard Mitigation Plan. I'm sure you have all read it. All 46 pages, I think it is.
No, it's 430.
Well, our area. But
Yeah.
basically what that does is it helps us whenever we have a disaster. It helps us get grants from FEMA and HSCM. I've completed the assessment. We just have to turn it in. So we just need to get an adoption of the resolution for the County All Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Okay.
So you need to make a motion. And
Do we have a motion on the floor to adopt the All Hazard Mitigation Plan?
I'll make that motion.
Brad Nelson first. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Gary Heacock second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
my next item is the looking for a council action approval for the purchase of a DNR truck that was in the budget for 2018. Actually, it's been in the budget for the last couple of years. It finally came available this past January. Looking to purchase that vehicle for $11,250. I had it budgeted for $10,000. The Relief Association is going to give the city $1,250 to offset the overcharges.
Are there any questions for Chip before we?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Gary Heacock's first. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Dave Schrupp second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And my third item would be to put my 2003 Ford 250 as surplus equipment so I can go out and sell that.
And you want a motion on the floor for that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Dave Schrupp first. Is there a second?
Second it.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Park and Rec and Library.
Good evening. Some quick updates. The Zuma class that we have going on at the community center has been changed to Thursday nights from 6:30 to 7:30. So I wanted to announce that. And we've got another senior driving class coming up. That's on Thursday, May 31st from 9 to 1. And the results of our second book sale of the year, May 4th and 5th, sale generated $369.50 for the Cross Lake Area Library. Next sale will be held June 1st and 2nd. So I want to thank our volunteers that man the sale each month there. They do a great job. Sergeant Eric Swanson will be putting on a senior scams awareness program here at the community center this Thursday, May 17th at 10:45. So anyone that's interested, that is free to attend. And then if people want to have the senior meal after that, they can go ahead and take advantage of that. They just need to call us Wednesday by noon to put in the reservation for the following day. So if you're interested, give us a call, and we'd love to have you come to the meeting and also have lunch after the meeting that day. Property purchase, we touched on this a little bit earlier tonight. We want to have a meeting, and we have set that one of the meetings up for this coming Monday at 5 o'clock to talk about the property purchase and the possible development of that property. I don't know if the council wants me to send a notice out again to the community members. There was a petition that you received in your mailboxes here a couple weeks ago with some concerned citizens in that area. I don't know if we need a public hearing on that. If the other alternative would be to have this meeting, and then if we absolutely need to have a public hearing, we could have it before maybe the next council meeting in June. I don't know what the rules are for that as far as the development. I don't know if we need.
We have a meeting set for the
Yes.
And that's,
But I'm just thinking the notice, I mean, that gives us less than a week notice to notify the public to come in, so we can't really classify that.
The papers are here, though.
Okay.
I'll have it Thursday. She'll have it. I will have it Thursday. Oh.
So I don't know if that's an issue or not, I just thought about that when you set the date for that meeting.
We can post it on our website. It's a 3-day posting.
Yeah, and I can sure do a mailing anyway, it wouldn't be official public hearing, I don't think we need it, just to the people that live within 350 feet of the property. I did a mailing last week, just letting the people know that we'd be developing the property and that there would be meetings on the development, so they know.
I think you should do that
I
job.
do too.
I think you
So-
should just let them know.
I'll just send the letter out again to the
Mhm.
350 and let them know of the meeting date, and
Yep.
we'll go from there, so.
That was at
Okay.
5:30, not 5?
Was it 5 or 5:30?
I think we said 5:30.
5:30, I wrote down.
I'd prefer 5:30, because one of the gals that's been working with the project works, and she'd like a
Okay.
little later, so that'd be great. Okay, thank you. Special event permit fee, we'd like the council to allow us to have a fee set up for our special events that happen at the community center. We have a special event permit. We don't have a fee that goes along with that permit. One of the examples is the pipeline meeting that we had last year. There was significant cost involved with that meeting. We didn't really have anything set up to charge for the city's actual expenditures for meetings like that. So at our last commission meeting, we talked about the possibility of having a minimum fee of $100, but that would allow the city to at least charge the groups that, when the city incurs expenses, we can get some of that money back. So Brad and Mr. Nevin and the rest of the commission talked about it. We all thought it was a good idea, and so we're asking for a motion to approve that special event fee at a minimum of $100 tonight.
Do we have a motion on the floor to charge $100 for
Make that motion.
David Nevin first?
Special event fee.
Special event fee. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Gary Heacock, second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Annual plant sale has happened at the community center. This is the garden club sale. It'll happen June 9th, and that'll take place at the Lions Picnic Shelter at the park. So there'll be some advertisements in the paper, and we'll have a big banner up at the park here in a couple weeks advertising for that sale. And my last item on my report tonight is just a thank you to Chip Lohmiller and the firemen for sponsoring our CPR and AED training class last Thursday. I think we had 17 or 18. To get a final number, 18 people that signed up. Earlier this year, we had an incident at the park where a gentleman had a massive heart attack, and because of our training, we were able to save that gentleman's life. So after that, some of the folks around the community center that go to some of the classes thought we should have a class, and they were interested in getting some more training, and so Chip was nice enough and the firemen to work with us to line up the training, and so we had a free training last Thursday, and it was everyone enjoyed the class, and the instructor was great, and we've got 18 more people that can step in and help someone that needs it in the future. Hopefully we don't need that training, but a couple months ago we did need that training, so that's my report for tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Joe.
Moving on to Public Works.
Good evening again. First couple things are just for your information. This week, in fact tomorrow, the mayor, Shar, myself, and my staff will be doing the annual pickup at the cemetery, so just everybody's notified of that. The second one, there's going to be an open house Tuesday, June 12th at 6 p.m. at Cross Lake City Hall on the County 36 project in the Crow Wing County. So we're hosting it here, the meeting. Next item is, there's two change orders as far as the 2018 street improvement project. Change order number 1, we want to add, on the end of Manhattan Point, we're looking at a future stormwater pond and a future stormwater system on that site, right in front of the Manhattan Beach Lodge. And this control structure, we can put it in today, and the estimate is $11,385 from Anderson Brothers to put it in. And it's kind of an insurance policy. If we go forward with the project, it's there. If we don't go through the project, it's going to be there. But the big one is it will save us about $25,000 if we do it today as part of the project rather than waiting.
Your cost again was 11,000 and
It's
change?
$11,385 to do it today.
And if you waited, you're going to basically triple,
Yep.
triple the cost.
Because we're tearing out that whole intersection again and starting over.
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to go with the proposed change order regarding the Manhattan Point Boulevard project. Is there a second?
Do you have a question? I have one question
Okay.
for Ted. Because this is part of the ponds that we're doing with the county, is there any participation on the county's level in that at some point?
That I do not know. It's the first time I'd heard that question asked, and that's something I can follow up and bring that back to the.
I was just prodded to ask that question.
It's the first that's the first I've
I
been asked
didn't
about
think of it
so-
either.
So I can ask that question and still follow through.
It was-
I would
it
think
was
there
discussed
should be
at-
some cost
Right.
to the county on that.
It was
so some
discussed,
participation.
well, for this part? Because it was discussed 50/50 on the whole project.
Yeah, right, so it should, either now or later, be 50% of it.
So let me have further discussion
Okay,
with him.
have further discussion.
We still want to
Yep.
get forward while we're
Right.
constructing it.
Right.
And I'm it's their pipe as well as our pipe. We just
Yep.
want to get it done now.
Yep. Okay,
that's-
so we have,
Indications are we're going to go ahead with that probably, right? I mean, it's a good plan, and so.
so we have a motion on the floor,
I'll second it.
and you seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. That was change order number one. Change order number two is, while we were in negotiations with one of the property owners, which just took place, we ended up having to add a retaining wall on the bike path. The owner is particular in how he wanted it to look. And he says he's already signed the easement, but to do that retaining wall is $12,648 or $45.68. So I need that as a motion so we can move forward with this part of the project.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you on those two. The next one is on the Dream Island Bridge, and just to let the council know before I forget, we have started grinding that road. They're about halfway done grinding Manhattan as we speak today. They started this morning. Their plan is they should be done Tuesday and Wednesday morning, moving here to City Hall parking lot, and grinding this parking lot. So we'll be losing our parking lot for a couple weeks here as of Wednesday. So we'll have to work on the other parking over at the fire hall or behind here during that time, but it's good to see them moving forward and getting it done, so. They're about a week ahead of schedule from what they projected, so. Next one is a change order for the Dream Island Bridge. When we did the project, we had two existing guardrails that were there, and we put those guardrails back in, and basically it's a cable guard system. Since that time, we've noticed some vehicles in the wintertime that are running up and down the bank, and it's quite steep on the south side of the bridge. So we would like to add the guardrails there to minimize the damage that's happening on the bank and control the access off over those banks. That would be an additional $12,833, and this is not eligible for any more of the grant money. This would be out of our pockets.
Can't you put a couple truckloads of big rocks there and do the same thing?
Yeah, so that was what original was done on before they put the guardrail, was put
They
more
wouldn't
rock.
drive over it too many times if you had some big rocks there.
It's, wintertime would just get packed with snow eventually, but that could be another idea for it. But what they want to do is, Anderson Brothers wants to move in hopefully on Wednesday and start blacktopping that. And they would like to have the guardrail in before they start, so that would be tomorrow. If this is approved, the guardrail would most likely go in on the next day.
For $12,000?
Is it like four-wheelers from ice fishermen trying to get out?
Yeah.
I'm with David. I think a couple of big old rocks down there is going to stop that.
A little detrimental. About $400 a piece.
Any other comments or questions regarding that guardrail? So, if we did rocks, what would the cost be, and are they landscaped into the bank, or?
I hadn't thought about it, so we haven't.
Yep.
I mean, we can go back to Anderson Brothers and get the cost of doing the rocks. It's just going to delay the pavement of the project and delay it a little bit longer.
So this is 155 feet, right?
On both sides.
And that matches what's there on the north side?
What do you think?
Make it look right.
Yeah, it would make it look right, and you get it done, but...
All right, go ahead.
What did you say, David?
Go ahead.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the proposed contract change regarding the guardrails. Is that what you said, Dave?
Yes, I'll say it.
Okay. Is there a second? All those any more comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The next one is we got into a discussion about, here the last couple council meetings, about hooking up and boring in a line to serve Moonlight Restaurant, Mr. Nevin's client at the time. And we went around and around a bit. And the county, the city was for it, would basically be a private system that would be pumping into our municipal system. The county engineer felt that the liability should be more in the city's court. So if we're going to do this boring, that the city should own it, is what it comes down to. And if the city's going to own it, this is my opinion now, if the city's going to own it, I think we should put the big pipe in. And before we go any farther forward and we react to somebody else coming in, I think we need to step back and take a hard look at where we're going to go with it. We have, back in 2010, we were looking at going behind Arnie's Meats. I know there's still some people that wish to have that done. If we go up to Moonlight, do we stub off to go down Daggett? Let's do this smartly and most cost-effective way we can. So at this time, I guess what I'm asking for is if anybody comes forward, we say no, we put a moratorium on it until a group of council members, myself, and hopefully some citizens get involved in it and say, where do we want to go forward from here today? So I'd like to see if we could put this moratorium in effect.
Would Moonlight Bay be exempt from the moratorium?
Moonlight Bay, after talking to them, they kind of told us that they are going to limp along for the time being. He's hoping to get another year or two out of his system, having it pumped more frequently.
But do you really think that we can come up with a plan and dig it up and get it in 2 years? I mean, I just think that they should be exempt in case
And you could-
restall, and they come into problems, we've already given them approval, just leave them the option.
You could name them as one exemption because they had come in beforehand. As this, that's within your power.
My
I think.
deal is gone, I've already put one in, so I'm done, I'm off it, but Moonlight, I think, should.
I think that's reasonable. And we talked at Public Works about the Public Works group talking with other people soon about possible extensions. Where do we go? How soon can we react? And we haven't set up a meeting yet, so.
But it's a huge project, and I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah.
it'll happen that quick.
You're probably talking $2.5–3 million, depending on where you go.
Well, plus we shut off the road.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
you're
that's-
probably gonna,
That's gonna be a problem.
2 to 3 weeks of shutting down the access through that piece right there. Brad's gonna have to go all the way out West Shore and come around, or up and around, to get home, or get back from work to home. And that's gonna be a lot of people, so.
So I'd make the motion on the moratorium exempting Moonlight, just leave it if they need to, or.
I think the resolution addresses that.
Well, I think we're just, the notes can reflect if that's the consensus here, that this says that it's exempt if they've applied by May 14th, and I think I'm hearing people say they really have applied. So if that's the case, then the resolution already, or the ordinance already addresses that.
So there's a motion on the floor by David Nevin to approve the temporary moratorium with the exemption of Moonlight Bay. Are there any other comments? Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I have one more thing. I'm going to ask Mr. Reardon if he wants to get up and talk about the improvements where they are today, but I've got one more thing I just want to bring forward to the council, if I may. I may indulge you for a minute here. The yard waste site down at the shop, it's gotten out of control. We've put signs up. It says for residents only, no commercial haulers. We leave the gate, and all of a sudden, the next morning, we got half a dozen loads that have been dumped in our pile. And I mean, this is tandem loads, big commercial vac loads off of a commercial hauler from someplace.
Put a camera in.
Well, that too, but I don't know what authority. I would have to ask my police what I can do, but we can't keep up with it. It's gotten to the point where we can't keep up with it. From Saturday to Sunday morning, literally from where you drive in all the way back to the red and the yellow buildings, you couldn't drive through there anymore. It was that much this weekend. I would like to fence it off for the time being until we can get ahead of it. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be sorry because there's a lot of local residents that use it and appreciate it, really appreciate having that available. But I have to do something because I can't keep up with it, so.
Why is it that we provide a dump spot? I mean, I know it's convenient, it's all these things, but why did this ever become the city's responsibility?
It was something, I guess you can blame it on me.
Okay.
I mean, truthfully, I'm the one that had the bright idea. Other communities I've worked for, I've always had these. I had a lot of people asking me, where can I get rid of this in our community? And when the property came available, I talked to my supervisor at the time, which was Tom, and I moved forward with it. And what a little goodwill has bloomed into, we have people, I mean, Mike's taking phone calls from other townships, people calling that want to bring it here.
And you burn it, right?
Well, typically we burn, we compost the leaves and the grass clippings, and we put that in a big pile, and eventually we're going to screen it off, so we got more black dirt for the ball fields or ditch embankments or wherever
Why
we
don't
need
you
it.
just put a sign, and it's for residential use only?
It says that.
And put security cameras installed, and put a penalty on there.
What's that?
Instead of,
We have cameras that show driving in. We don't have cameras that show that area. They're driving down the back road and coming in the backside now.
I think we should put a fence around it.
I think
Well,
you should
the
put a
part
few
of the-
boulders in the road.
It's crept up
Part of the problem is we don't own the whole property.
Oh.
Remember, we have one neighbor that has access across that property.
Yep.
another reason for future of buying that other piece of property, so we do have control of the area.
Why don't we just make it available to residents only on weekends, period?
And then who's going to open and close it? Are we going to have my staff open it in the morning and an officer close it in the evening, or
Yes.
what are we going to do? I mean,
Yes.
that's the kind of thing or is it only open from when we get there at 6 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon?
How much is a fence gonna cost, Ted?
I have no idea.
You know.
I just threw it out. I mean, gates and fencing, I don't know. I don't know what if.
The intent is for residential use only. You should just figure out a way to enforce that and throw out a couple big fines and the word will get out.
You know, I saw that pile when we were walking that property before the sewer deal started last year, and I saw it again a couple of weeks ago, and at the time, we commented that, you know, why are we doing this? And, yeah, I mean, it was huge, absolutely huge. I mean, a few people haven't seen this, you can't believe it. Now what it looks like, just that, and of course, you're blaming it on the fact that we had all those big storms, which was true, right? We did have a couple of big dogs come through. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger because everybody's finding out about it. And we can't even blame it on a big storm recently, and it's just tripled.
We're
It's
hearing
just-
that
it's
if you
crazy.
haul it to Ideal Transfer Station, there's a fee for it. If you haul it to the landfill, there's a fee for it. You know, how do we get control of it and control it ourselves?
Charge
They
a
have
fee
s-
for it. I mean, there shouldn't be,
and-
nothing's free. There's no reason that they dump for free.
And I don't disagree.
You can
with
hire
a bit.
people to get rid of it. It's a phone call.
I think
You know?
I think that's the right way. Do we hire some retired gentleman to sit down there in a little shack and take the money for us, or how do we do it?
I'd say clean it up and cease the practice of taking it. The private people can find their own place to dump these things. I've never been down there in my life. I got a fair amount of property. You just get rid of this stuff. You make a phone call and you get a bill in the mail and it's gone. I mean, there's no, well, go ahead and giggle. Why is the taxpayer paying for somebody else's junk to get dumped?
Yeah.
You know? There's no responsibility of the city to give people a place to dump their own debris and waste from their yard. Take care of it.
So what would that look like in a motion, Brad?
Appropriate some money to close the dump and appropriate some money to clean up the mess. You're going to be doing it next year, 5 years from now, 8 years from now. Still going to be going.
And if we have a major storm, do we open it again? That's going to be the other question.
That would be, if you get storms like those two we had that hit Gull and us in 2 years back to back, 14, 15, 15, 16, whatever they are, I believe there is a place for an exemption at that point. I mean, if you look at that mess that was particular down on Gull, that is an emergency thing where people need to react. At that point, has only happened a couple of times in, all of our history up here, right? I mean, that we've seen a storm of that magnitude. We're not just talking about a little tornado that dumps through town, but, something like that was really of a huge magnitude. The reason I say this is because this problem is going to go on and on. You'll have this dump 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 13 years from now. If you close it and clean it up, it's done. Let everybody figure out where to take their debris. Not the city's responsibility.
So I'm looking for direction from this body. If that's what you so choose me to do, we can barricade it off for the time being. We do have a few big boulders around and
I
some
would say if
barricades
you
and
could-
cones, and we'll do the best we can.
I don't think we need to put a new cyclone fence up around it, If you can't figure out how to, the intent is for the residents at best case. And if they're abusing it, shut it down or put some rocks or put some cameras up or something, but.
Gary, do you have any comments or questions on it?
No, I just used it today.
I seen Gary down there, I can confirm it.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, I was just thinking that when I lived in the Twin Cities, it wasn't every day you could drive into a place like that. It was in the fall and in the spring, and it was posted by the city on certain weekends, and that was the end of it. And everybody came, you should catch up, you should close it, catch up, and then you open it up on whatever weekend, and pretty soon everybody will get the drift of what's going on. And you could probably have somebody working there, and then if somebody comes in with larger than a pickup load, where do you live, Where's your driver's license? That's what they did down the city.
Somebody to get rid of it, they should pay for it at minimal.
I like that idea.
Or come back.
Spring cleanup,
Yeah.
fall cleanup, you have it open 2 times through the year for but you gotta find a way to control it. I like that idea.
Do you want to make a motion on that?
Yeah, no one.
What's a motion?
I would just soon try maybe 1 week in a month for now,
1 week in a month?
unless spring is getting out of hand.
It's
But
like I
close
said,
it all the
it's-
other times.
Like I said, it's the things that are happening when we leave.
Right.
I mean, you can't tell me those dump truck loads are coming from. I mean,
It's
there's
a
a couple
free-for-all.
guys in town that have their own facilities. I understand that. There's, a contractor that has a home up here, and he hauls this stuff down there when he cleans his yard. That I understand. I have no problem with that. It's the guy that's getting paid from that residence, or from Ideal, or Mission, or wherever, and he's dumping in here because it's cheaper and easier for him.
Right, he's charging to deliver to some other site and coming to the close one. I would just make the motion that, you can change it if you want, but at least have it open 1 week in a month, and you can have a guy there, close it and catch up, and if you can go to more than 1 week in a month and handle it, but somebody's going to have to be there to check to make sure there's a resident.
And to Cross Lake residents only.
Right.
The Ideal transfer station, it was a dump. That's what we called it back in the day, right? And now we got a permit again the other day for $10, and, computers were $7 a piece, and, I can't remember what this, that, and the other thing. Got rid of some TVs, got cleaned out a lot of items, and I don't think, to take all that away and dispose of it properly was a $120 bill. So you collect for $5, $6, so it's the same thing. You pay a reasonable fee, throw $10, $20 in the kitty and get rid of your load of brush and whatever, but do something to control it and to make it pay for itself, or at least try to maintain itself.
Can I make one
You
suggestion?
might have to, my thought is this, we have a lot of people that aren't residents.
Property owners in Cross Lake.
Property owners, you've
Yes.
got to say.
I think it says property owners is
Yeah.
what it actually says.
Okay, I'll change that to property owners.
I guess what I would do is, the suggestion I would make would be to, because there's so much, how do we run it, how do we do this kind of discussion, is to shut it down for now and have Director Ted Strand come back with a plan on what he thinks would work the best for it.
I can do that. I
And
can
come
bring
back
it
with a
back to you.
recommendation.
Okay.
And in the meantime, it'll give me some time to get a little breathing room to get ahead of it, maybe.
And to find those big rocks.
So how do you close it down, Ted, if they come in after hours?
Well, we can go up to the property lines where the other gentleman goes in and out, and like we did before, we actually took logs and just blocked it off.
Yeah.
Pulled them out of the brush pile and we put logs.
So you don't want to do that every day, but if you're going to shut it down, you can do it. Yeah. Or once a month, you can move them or something.
Okay.
You wouldn't create, just real quick, but just so you're not creating, you don't think, Ted, they might try to sneak back on Ness's property and get through? I mean, we don't want to do something, makes them start breaking through on the corner of private property on the backside if they think they can get to the backside of that pile the way it sits by Ness's?
I'm sure if that might happen, but knowing Mr. Ness, he's going to be guarded himself.
Okay.
He's already told me that he's told a few people that they shouldn't be there, and I said, be careful doing that, just, cautious. There's some people out that take offense to somebody policing it like that, but he will let me know.
Okay.
He's given me driver's license plate numbers before, so.
Talk to him and
So what we're gonna
maybe he'll let
do-
you barricade it a little bit.
So what we're going to do is Ted will have some time to think about this, digest it, and come back at our next council meeting with a recommendation.
We'll close it probably this week, and it'll be closed until further notice.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Reardon.
Mike Reardon, Bolton and Minkin, and I could tell by your tone this should be very brief. Two comments, I guess. The main gist of the report is in April, if you've looked at that paragraph there, but winter kind of extended out there until quite a bit into April. So the contractor was pretty slow, but since the end of April and now recently, they're really hitting it pretty good out there. They're doing a lot of the underground, putting in a lot of the concrete pads, and so they're working very aggressively, and a lot of the equipment has started to come in now that we're waiting for, and of particular significance will be the motor control center, and that's scheduled to come in next week. And that's where they're putting the piping in, but they can't run any wires, can't hook up anything until they get that. That's the, one of the main centerpieces. So at this point, it's going very, very well and very quickly. The second item I wanted to mention was now we've started to get into, you get by the big stuff, it takes a lot of time, but you know, the major tanks and that sort of thing. But now we're getting into a lot of the detail out there, trying to hook this all up. And we're finding a few things that were either missed in design, were misunderstood in design, some things which we've gotten which weren't quite right as they were being fabricated. And so we're looking at a number of changes out there, or things that need to be dealt with. And I know Ted's been monitoring that, and he's concerned about getting that all right and having no cost to the city and that sort of thing. And I can assure you that that's our goal too. And we just had a meeting last week with Ted on that, covered quite a few items, and I know there's going to be more to come. So I've got a number listed there of items that need to be addressed, and it just says to be determined with the cost. None of those are of significant cost, although the EQ basin mixer could be a fair cost, but there's a couple different options which are being discussed. When I say fair cost, that could be in the $5,000, it could be up to $20,000 range to purchase it and install it. But things are progressing, and we're still on schedule, and so I think that's a good thing, good report back to you at this point. So I'd answer any questions in particular that you might have on the project out there. If you haven't been out there, everything's torn up this week.
Are there any questions or comments for Mike? Continue on.
Okay, thank you.
And then we go to the city attorney's report.
No report.
Public forum. No action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on the agenda of a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given a 3-minute time limit. Do we have anybody who would like to make a comment?
Good evening. Mike O'Connell, 35411 Riverwood Court, Cross Lake. In transparency, as we head towards the May 21st, 5:30 meeting about the land acquisition, I just wanted to provide the City Council with 2 letters from the City of Pequot Lakes, along with the City of Brainerd, in reference to their dog parks, as that would be an agenda of mine to petition for some portion of that land use being as a dog park. So this was in response to the valid concerns that were brought up in the petition from the neighbors on Egret Road, and just want to provide you with these for your packet before we get to that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Are there any other comments, public comments? If not, the public forum is closed. Any old business? Any new business? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.